And the gentleman I introduced this week is Leo Robin.
A kiss on the hand may be quite continental, but diamonds are a girl's best friend. A kiss may be grand, but won't pay the rental on your humble flat, or help you at the automat. Men grow cold as girls grow old, and we all lose our charms in the end. But square cut or pear shape, these rocks don't lose their shape. Diamonds are a girl's best friend.
To which you may well ask, Leo who? Because Robin is one of those outstanding songwriters whose works have totally eclipsed their own personal fame. Leo Robin belongs to that honorable brigade of writers who are prolific, but whose work is always of a standard, a true professional, whose professional existence has consisted of the following terrifying process. Some screwball hits on an insanely impractical idea for a movie. Now, this same screwball then decides he wants music. So, they call in someone like Leo Robin to fix them up with something appropriate. Now, the first thing to take note of is that, like most of his fellow writers, Robin prepared for his entry into this most rigorous of professions by going in for employment closely linked to it. Sigmund Romberg, if you remember, became an electrician. Harry Warren learned to fly an airplane. Likewise, Leo Robin, who also practiced the art of the false start.
Well, I never intended to be a lyric writer. I lived in Pittsburgh. I was working for a steel company, and the president of the company was a kind of sponsor of mine because I was helping him in some of his philanthropy and social work and things of that sort. And in the course of my hobby of doing things around a settlement house there, I used to put on little plays to keep the kids off the street. Then I found out that at the Carnegie Technical Institute in Pittsburgh, they had a wonderful theatrical department. So I went over there at night, learned something about the theater. And then finally, I said, well, I got to get out of this town. I've got to get to New York. I've got to do something in the theater.
Robin did just that, and eventually stumbled into the lyric writing game, along a route which included a discouraging interview with George Kaufman and a couple of jousts with music publishers. Now, Robin got to New York in 1926, and as he'd been living in Pittsburgh, if, as Groucho Marx once said, you can call that living, that meant that Robin was going on for 30 before he started. But once having started, he began to move very fast indeed, and within a year had managed to write one of the most famous lyrics of the decade. The show was called Hit the Deck. The composer was Vincent Youmans, and the villains of the piece, the English. Here's an illustration of how the perfidious Albion theory works out in the musical theater.
We arrived in London, and the first day I was there, naturally I was interested in wanting to see the London version of Hit the Deck. And I picked up a newspaper, and there was this huge headline, great big black headline, which said that the government was threatening to close Hit the Deck because one of the lyrics was objectionable. And the Chancellor of the Exchequer, whoever the censor is, didn't want that line in the show, and if we insisted on using it, he would close the show. Because they thought it was immoral or something. Well, anyway, the lines were in the verse to the famous song, which was a big hit in those days, a song called Hallelujah. Well, anyway, this colored mammy is recalling her childhood days and the different spiritual songs that they sang, and two of the lines in the verse went something like this. How I sang about the judgment morn and about Gabriel tooting on his horn. Well, they said the phrase tooting on his horn was sacrilegious, and if I didn't change it, they'd close the show. So I changed it to blowing on his horn, and the show kept going.
I'm recalling times when I was smallin', light and free, jubilee day. Old folks praying, every everybody swaying, loudly I chanted my prayer. How I sang about the judgment morn, and of Gabriel tooting on his horn. In that sunny land of milk and honey, I had no complaint while I thought of saying, so I say to all who feel forlorn, sing hallelujah, hallelujah, and you'll shoot the blues away. Cares pursue ya, hallelujah, catch it through the darkest day. Satan lies awaiting and creating skies of gray. Hallelujah, hallelujah, helps to shoo the clouds away. Sing hallelujah, hallelujah, sing hallelujah, hallelujah, sing hallelujah, hallelujah, sing hallelujah. Say hey, hallelujah, brother, hallelujah, hallelujah, shoo your blues away. Hallelujah, sister, hallelujah, it's the coming of the judgment day. Satan tries away and creating skies of gray. Sing hallelujah, hallelujah, helps to shoot, helps to shoot, it helps to shoot the blues away.
So, Hallelujah had a happy ending. Mind you, the thought occurs that any man who thinks that the Chancellor of the Exchequer is the censor deserves to get his show closed. However, Leo Robin survived his brush with the establishment, went home again, and before long went where all good songwriters used to go in those days, Hollywood.
In those days, a studio would give you a contract, and then they would give a contract to a composer, and they would say, you two fellas are working together, and that was that. I had never worked with Whiting. I was scared stiff at the thought of working with this great man, but it worked out very well.
The Whiting who scared Leo Robin so badly was Richard Whiting, who, by the time Robin met up with him, had already composed some very big hits: Japanese Sandman, Ain't We Got Fun, Sleepy Time Gal, She's Funny That Way. No wonder Robin was nervous. But as he says, it all worked out fine in the end.
In the early days of musical pictures, there was a period when you had to write what they called the theme song of the picture. If the girl in the picture was named Minnie, you had to write a song called Minnie. Well, it so happens that in the Chevalier picture, the girl's name was Louise. And that was that. We had to write a song called Louise. And we wrote it. And thanks to Chevalier, it became very important.
Wonderful, oh, it's wonderful to be in love with you. Beautiful, you're so beautiful, you haunt me all day through. Every little breeze seems to whisper Louise, birds in the trees seem to twitter Louise. Each little rose tells me it knows I love you, love you. Every little beat that I feel in my heart seems to repeat what I felt at the start. Each little sigh tells me that I adore you, Louise. Just to see and hear you is joy I never knew. But to be so near you thrills me through and through. Anyone can see why I wanted your kiss. It had to be, but the wonder is this. Can it be true someone like you could love me, Louise?
In 1930, the year after Louise, Robin wrote another one of those lyrics which seeped into the mass consciousness and has stayed there ever since. As a matter of fact, it involved a young lady whose attitude towards herself later earned her the triumphant title of the Iron Butterfly. Her name, Jeanette MacDonald.
When I was in New York, I had written a show which turned out to be a flop. But in that show, there was a little girl playing the ingenue part. 2 years later, in Hollywood, I was assigned to write for that little girl, who was now Jeanette MacDonald, and we wrote Beyond the Blue Horizon, which was a spectacular scene in the picture because the great Ernest Lubitsch directed it that way.
Beyond the blue horizon, waits a beautiful day. Goodbye to things that bore me. Joy is waiting for me. I see a blue horizon. My life has only begun. Beyond the blue horizon, lies a golden sun.
Beyond the blue horizon, waits a beautiful day. Goodbye to things that bore me. Joy is waiting for me.
I see a blue horizon. My life has only begun.
Beyond the blue horizon, lies a
Paramount, in those days, was one of the front runners in the newfangled musical form, mainly because they had signed up and were very carefully developing the biggest singer of the age. And it was through that singer that Leo Robin met his perfect match, musically speaking.
While I was on the Paramount lot, a young fellow who was a piano player and sort of vocal coach came over to me and said, look, I have a chance to write a couple of songs for a picture that Paramount is planning, and would you write the lyrics for me? Well, I had nothing to do. I said, sure, I'll write those lyrics. Well, the fellow happened to be Ralph Rainger, with whom I later teamed, and we were very lucky together. But the first song we wrote together was a song called Please.
Oh, please, lend your little ear to my plea. Lend a ray of cheer to my plea. Tell me that you love me too. Please, let me hold you tight in my arms. I could find delight in your charms. Every night, my whole life through, your eyes reveal that you have the soul of an angel white as snow. How long must I play the role of a gloomy Romeo? Please, say you're not intending to tease. Speed that happy ending and please tell me that you love me too.
Robin and Rainger soon became closely associated with the early Crosby musicals at Paramount. And as always in these affairs, the balance of the collaboration was a very delicate arrangement indeed, with each man nudging the other surreptitiously into inspiration.
I imagine what I did was catch not only the melody, but the spirit of the melody, the flavor of the melody, and find words that would have that same spirit and same flavor. Now, I'm guessing at that. I don't want to seem to be taking it too seriously because I don't think it's art, you know. It was a profession. And Ralph had very good taste, though. He was a very good selector of lyrical ideas. Even in the case of June and January, he had played me a very light, lilting kind of melody. And I said, well, give me a little time on this. And as usual, I used to walk around the Paramount lot and grope for ideas. And I came back in about an hour, and I said, Ralph, I think I have a good title for that tune. And the tune, if I recall, went something like da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. So he said, well, what's your idea? I said, it's June in January, la, la. He said, you must be out of your mind. June in January. He said, I've got to write an entirely different melody to that. And so he sat back and came up with this melody for June in January, which is an entirely different thing than the melody that he had written. So that's an example of his taste and his judgment of a lyric.
A clouded moon leaps across a clouded sky. Winds of January sigh and moan. And yet it's June. I can see a sky of blue. Dear, the miracle is due to you, just you. It's June in January because I'm in love. It always is spring in my heart with you in my arms. The snow is just white blossoms that fall from above. And here is the reason, my dear, your magical charm. The night is cold, the trees are bare, but I can feel the scent of roses in the air. It's June in January because I'm in love, but only because I'm in love with you.
The Robin Rainger partnership was prolific, but from time to time, Robin found himself sitting across the piano from some other composer and turning out a song destined to sell millions. Around the time he and Rainger were getting to know each other, Robin encountered an older composer with a song in his head and no time to do anything about it.
I was on a vacation, and I happened to be in New York City, and it was about 6 in the evening, and my phone rang, and a fellow says, this is Conrad, and he says, I've got to have a lyric quick, and you're the only one I can think of. And I said, well, look, I can't write the lyric now. Give me a week or so. Oh, he says, I can't give you a week. I've only got about an hour. I said, well, I can't do it because I can't write that fast. I've never written that fast. And thanks very much. But about 10 minutes later, my doorbell rang, and in he walks. And he walked in with a very handsome crooner of those days called Russ Colombo. And he says, look, here's the tune. He sat down at the piano, he started playing it. He says, I got to have a lyric. In 5 minutes, we've got a date with Flo Ziegfeld. In an hour, he likes the tune and he wants to hear words on it. Well, I said, my God, I don't know how I can do it that fast. Please, excuse me, it's dinner time. I've got a date with a girl, and I can't do it now. I'm not even shaved. I tried to alibi out of the thing, but I couldn't. And finally, he kept playing the tune. He said, any words you write, any words, anything, just so that Russ can sing something to Ziegfeld. So I said, well, who was the song for? What's it all about? Well, he said, Helen Morgan is going to sing it. I said, all right. What is the situation in the show? What's her character? What is she? He says, nothing. She just walks out in one and sings a song. I said, well, I've got to have some motivation. She just can't come out and sing a new song that people don't know. If she sang a well-known song, that would be understandable. So I said, look, what if she comes out and she's got a beautiful gown on and she has an arm full of bracelets? And she says, these are handcuffs. I'm just a prisoner of love. That's it, he yelled. Prisoner of love, right? Well, I put down the first words that popped into my head, and to this day I'm ashamed of that lyric, but it became a hit. Now the payoff is Ziegfeld turned it down. Said, I don't want it, I can't use it just that way. Kahn called me the next day. He said, Ziegfeld turned it down, but he says, Russ is doing it on his radio program tonight, so don't worry about it. Russ Colombo did it on his radio program, and the next day there were calls for the song in all the music stores. But 10 years later, Perry Como made a record of the song, sold over 1 million records, and revived the song completely, so that today people know the song Prisoner of Love. Now that was actually one of those freak things that was written on the spur of the moment, but it shows it, because the lyric is not one of my kind of lyrics. Very ordinary lyric.
Alone from night to night you'll find me, too weak to break the chains that bind me. I need no shackles to remind me I'm just a prisoner of love. For one command I stand and wait now, from one who's master of my fate now. I can't escape, for it's too late now. I'm just a prisoner of love. What's the good of my caring if someone is sharing those arms with me? Although she has another, I can't have another, for I'm not free. She's in my dreams, awake or sleeping. Upon my knees to her I'm creeping. My very life is in her keeping. I'm just a prisoner of love.
When Leo Robin describes that lyric as ordinary, he no doubt means that most of the phrases are well-known mottos or catchphrases or cliches, as they're sometimes called. The trouble is that the whole area of lyric writing in popular music consists, more or less, of stringing cliches together. Ira Gershwin, one of the very greatest lyric writers in America, once published a list of all the cliches he'd used in hit songs, and the list went on for pages, from four-leaf clovers and things are looking up to things have come to a pretty pass and nice work if you can get it. But occasionally, a lyric turns up which is something more than a cliche. And in 1937, Robin produced one of the most famous of these. It won an Oscar, but in spite of that, it was still a brilliant piece of work. Here's the story.
This director came to us and said, boys, you got to help me out. He said, I'm stuck. I've got a scene in this picture. There are two sophisticated people who had been married and divorced, but by chance they meet on an ocean liner, and they're sitting in the bar of this ocean liner, and he says, I've got to say that they're still in love, but they dare not say it to one another. Now, he said, I've had a half a dozen writers try to write this scene in dialogue, and it doesn't work. Now, he said, last night, he said, I couldn't sleep, and I got a brainstorm. I said to myself, if I could do this scene in words and music, maybe it would play. So I said, that's your job. You've got to do the scene in words and music. But remember, they mustn't say, I love you, anyplace. So that's what we wrote. But he said, remember, the fellow in the picture is a man that we just brought on from New York. He's a comedian. And this song has got to have some laughs in it. So Ralph said, look, this is a scene. You better write the lyrics first, and I'll set some kind of melody to it. So I came in after several weeks. It took a long time to write. I think I spent more time on this song than any other I've ever written. I came in with these lyrics, and Ralph set that wonderful melody that he wrote. Then we tried to get reactions. We always did. The Paramount Music Department had a half a dozen different composers and musicians and people always hanging around. So we called in Freddie Hollander, and I said, Freddie, we want you to hear something. So I got about through the third chorus. This was a long thing. Got through the third chorus, and I see he's reaching for his handkerchief and mopping his eyes. Oh, I said, now this is funny. This is supposed to be for a comedian, and here somebody's listening to it and crying instead of laughing. So we called in somebody else, and we got to about the same point in the song, and this fellow's wiping his eyes. After he left, I said to Ralph, well, we better tear that up because that's not a song for Bob Hope. Give me a little time, and I'll try to think of something else. The next day, we ran into this director, and he says, where is that song? He says, I told you 3 weeks ago I need it, and I'm going into production very soon. The fellow's name was Mitchell Lyson. We said, Mitch, we've got the song, but everybody that hears it cries. So he said, let me hear it. He came over to our little studio, and we played the song, and we got about the same point in that chorus, and here's this director mopping his eyes. So I stopped right then and there, and I said, oh, well, now, you see, Mitch, you see what I mean? It's not the right song. He said, the hell it isn't. I'm taking it. And he put it in the picture, and it worked beautiful as a scene. And Ralph says, boy, he says, I think we've got a great hit. I said, how can that be a hit? It's not a song, it's a scene. Ralph says, I'll bet you $10 it'll be a hit. Well, I bet the $10, and I was happy to pay off.
Thanks for the memory of sentimental verse, nothing in my purse, and chuckles when the preacher said, for better or for worse. How lovely it was. Thanks for the memory of Schubert's serenade, little things of jade, and traffic jams and anagrams and bills we never paid. How lovely it was. We who could laugh over big things were parted by only a slight thing. I wonder if we did the right thing. Oh, well, that's life, I guess. I love your dress. Do you? It's pretty. Thanks for the memory of faults that you forgave, rainbows on a wave,
and stockings in the basin when a fellow needs a shave. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the memory of tinkling temple bells, alma mater yell,
And Cuban rum and towels from the very best hotel.
oh, how lovely it was. Thanks for the memory of cushions on the floor, hashed with Dinty Moore, that pair of gay pajamas that you bought and never wore.
Say, by the way, whatever became of those pajamas?
Huh?
Huh?
We said goodbye with a highball.
Then I got as high as a steeple.
Did you?
But we were intelligent people.
No tears, no fuss. Hooray for us. Strictly ingenue. Darling, how are you?
And how are all those little dreams that never did come true?
Awfully glad I met you.
Cheerio and toodaloo.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
One of the finest popular vocal duets ever written, Thanks for the Memory, demonstrates the neatness with which the Robin and Rainger styles dovetailed. But I'm going to play another song the partnership produced around the same time to demonstrate that when jokes weren't required, Robin could produce a very impressive line in romantic intensity. Perhaps Rainger deserves a lot of the credit, because unlike the Thanks for the Memory episode, it was he who used to write the music first, and the kind of melodies he wrote often demanded the highly passionate lyric.
Living for you is easy living. It's easy to live when you're in love. And I'm so in love. There's nothing in life but you.
which Robin wrote in 1937. Songs like Easy Living are scattered throughout Leo Robin's repertoire, items of the moment which appeared at the time to be transient, but which, either through the appeal of a phrase or the recording by a distinguished artist, happened to survive far beyond the wildest dreams of the men who wrote them. A perfect example is a piece that Robin and Rainger wrote back in the early 1930s, apparently in all seriousness, and which later had a new lease of life as a kind of musical joke.
Well, Love in Bloom was written for Bing Crosby, but thanks to Jack Benny, it's still alive. What happened was this. We wrote this song for Bing Crosby, and the publisher says it can't be a hit. He says the words are too poetic, they're too fancy, and the melody is too hard to sing. Well, in spite of the publisher, maybe with the help of the picture or with the help of Bing Crosby, no doubt, it became very popular, and everybody knew the song. Now, one day, Jack Benny needed a song for a comedy routine on the radio in which he would play some kind of song on his fiddle. And so he picked what was the most popular song of the time, Love in Bloom. Then he played it again on a later show. Pretty soon, wherever he went, as he walked in, the band would strike up Love in Bloom. So he said, well, I might as well make it my theme song, which he did. But as Jack says, how come a comedian like me picks a poetic ballad as his theme song? But that was his doing. He was the one that kept it alive.
What Leo Robin means is that Benny kept the song alive for the express purpose of murdering it. There really is no business like show business.
Blue night and you alone with me. My heart has never known such ecstasy. Am I on earth? Am I in heaven? Can it be the trees that fill the breeze with rare and magic perfume? Oh no, it isn't the trees, it's love in bloom. Can it be the spring that seems to bring the stars right into this room? Oh no, it isn't the spring, it's love in bloom. My heart was a desert, but you planted a seed, and this is the flower, this hour of sweet fulfillment. Is it all a dream, the joy supreme that came to us in the gloom? You know it isn't a dream, it's love in bloom.
If you remember a few moments back, Leo Robin attached to himself the adjective poetic. In his own mind, anyway, he never really escaped from that category until very much later in his career, 1949 to be exact, when he took a trip east to Broadway.
As a matter of fact, around the Paramount Studios, they used to call me the poet, because that was my style. You take a song like June in January. That's a very poetic conception. The only time I really got away from that typical style of mine was when I did this New York show, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. But it was a comedy story, and there was no room for anything poetic in it.
The French are glad to die for love. They delight in fighting duels. But I prefer a man who lives and gives expensive joy. A kiss on the hand may be quite continental, but diamonds are a girl's best friend. A kiss may be grand, but won't pay the rental on your humble flat, or help you at the automat. Men grow cold as girls grow old, and we all lose our charms in the end. But square cut or pear shape, these rocks don't lose their shape. Diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Well, Leo Robin can say that that's not poetic, and we know what he means, but it had poetry of a kind. In fact, Robin got involved in that show only after losing his most congenial partner, Ralph Rainger.
Ralph Rainger, as you may or may not know, very tragically lost his life in a plane accident, and again, I was without a partner. And along came a fellow named Julie Stein, who had been writing New York shows, and very successfully. And he talked me in, against my will almost, to write the lyrics for a show called Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. That opened in New York, and it was very successful, particularly a song called Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend.
I've heard of affairs that are strictly platonic, but diamonds are a girl's best friend. And I think affairs that you must give Masonic are better bets. If little sets get big baguettes, time rolls on, and youth is gone, and you can't straighten up when you bend. But stiff back or stiff knees, you stand straight as Tiffany's.
No doubt Leo Robin could afford a few diamonds of his own after Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. That was the kind of show where the songs go on earning royalties for the writers long after the show has been forgotten. And there were 2 or 3 items in that particular production which looked like surviving indefinitely. Robin remembers one of them with understandable affection.
Well, Bye Bye Baby fit the situation. And I wanted to start with a song that had the spirit of that time, that period. The story, the book started about in 28, and in those days, that was the kind of popular song that they would have. Now, Lorelei's leaving for Europe. Her lover is at the boat, and I thought it would be very appropriate to have a song like that instead of a poetic ballad of 2 lovers parting. I thought if I wrote it in that style, where even where they call one another baby, that was in character. So out of that came Bye Bye Baby.
I'll be in my room alone, every post meridian,
And I'll be with my diary and that book by Mr. Gideon.
Bye, bye, baby. Remember, you're my baby when they give you the eye. Although I know that you care, won't you write and declare that though on the loose you are still on the square? I'll be gloomy, but send that rainbow to me, then my shadows will fly.
then my shadows will fly, though I'll be gone for a while. I know that I'll be smiling with my baby by and by.
So that's how, for more than 30 years, Leo Robin passed the time by putting words into other people's mouths. Of course, he wrote hundreds of songs that we haven't had time to look at. Songs written for a specific occasion, commissioned works, production line poetry, if you like. And it's surprising how many of them linger in the memory.
A journey to a star would not be very far as long as I'm alone with you. Romantic as we are, a journey to a star could start before the dawn breaks through. You're right beside my heart, we're just about a kiss apart, and we could make a dream come true. A moment of your love would have the feeling of a journey to a star with you.
I went to the president of this company, and I said, I'm quitting. And he says, you're crazy. Stick with me. I'll make you a millionaire. I said, I don't want to be a millionaire. I want to be in show business.
I'm just a little girl from Little Rock. A horse used to be my closest pal. Though I never did learn to read or write, I learned about love in the pale moonlight, and now I'm an educated gal. I learned an awful lot in Little Rock, and here's some advice I'd like to share. Find a gentleman who is shy or bold, or short or tall, or young or old. As long as the guy's a millionaire. For a kid from the small street, I did very well on Wall Street, though I never owned a share of stock. And now that I'm known in the biggest banks, I'm going back home and give my thanks to the one who broke my heart, the one who broke my heart, the one who broke my heart. In Little Rock.
Sometimes you can't even pick your own songs because the song that you count most upon sometimes misses with the public, and a song that you put little value on becomes a hit. And one example was a picture that I did with Harold Arlen called Cosba, and Tony Martin was the singing star of that picture.
For every man, there's a woman. For every life, there's a plan. And wise men know it was ever so. Since the world began, woman was made for man. Where is she?
composing and came to Hollywood as a producer at Paramount. And he had a house in Malibu. And we were up there one Sunday afternoon. And at one point he came over to me and he said, look, why don't you and I write a song together? I said, all right. You got a tune? He said, no. Have you got a title? I said, well, I've been thinking of a kind of a cute title. And I told it to him, and he sat down and he wrote this melody. And I put words to it within the hour or so, I guess.
Love is just around the corner, any cozy little corner. Love is just around the corner when I'm around you. I'm a sentimental mourner, and I couldn't be forlorner when you keep me on a corner, just waiting for you. Venus de Milo was noted for her charms. Strictly between us, you're cuter than Venus. What's more, you got arms. So let's go cuddle in a corner, any cozy little corner. Love is just around the corner, and I'm around you. Let's go cuddle in the corner, any cozy little corner. Love is just around the corner, and I'm around you.
Well, they used to call Leo Robin the poet on the old Paramount lot. And maybe they knew what they were doing after all. The only dissenting voice is Leo Robin's. But maybe we needn't take him too seriously, except when he's writing lyrics.
I don't want to seem to be taking it too seriously because, after all, I don't think it's art, you know. It was a profession.
For the memory of tinkling temple bells, alma mater yell,
And Cuban rum and towels from the very best hotels.
oh, how lovely it was. Thanks for the memory of cushions on the floor, hashed with Dinty Moore, that pair of gay pajamas that you bought and never wore.
Say, by the way, whatever became of those pajamas?
Huh?
Huh?
We said goodbye with a highball.
Then I got as high as a steeple.
Did you?
But we were intelligent people.
No tears, no fuss. Hooray for us. Strictly ingenue. Darling, how are you?
And how are all those little dreams that never did come true?
Awfully glad I met you.
Cheerio, toodaloo.
Thank you.
Thank you.